Okay, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, commissioners and staff. Thank you for joining the Zoom today. We're going to try a little something different with agenda review. And for the viewing public that is watching via stream or YouTube, we're having difficulties with Facebook. But for the viewing public, the reason we are trying something new is I just want to, historically, the county has had agenda review just like all governments do in advance of agenda, that in advance of their public meeting, to make sure that everything is, properly sequenced, that there's no misspellings, that it's as accurate as can be. The county historically has always had agenda review with the chairman and vice chair. And I've always been uncomfortable with that because I think all commissioners should be privy to the review. So we're trying it today. All commissioners have been invited. I know Commissioner Meitzner is out of town also. I'm not sure he will be here, but I see we have the other 4 setting commissioners on Zoom and a number of staff. So we'll try this today. If we don't like the format, if we want to come together in person, I'm fine with that. Or if we like Zoom, we can continue. But it's a way to involve all commissioners in the discussion. It's also a way to involve staff, and commissioners can ask technical questions of agenda items coming up of the appropriate staff. So with that, we always at the beginning of every meeting have a little bit of public announcement. So Nicole, do we have any public announcements that you will be making at next Wednesday's meeting?
Good morning, everyone. I am planning to speak about a community job fair that is in conjunction with Kids Department for Children and Families. That is happening on September 21st from 10 to 2. I will also be discussing Preparedness Month, that is for emergency management. And we are also tentatively having a COVID-19 update.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions on that or anything that you would like to add to that list? All right. Very good. So after Nicole goes through her comments at the beginning, we'll dive into the meeting. Chairman, we do not have a minister lined up for this week yet. Sabrina's still working on that. So looking like moment of silence probably during invocation. And then we'll, of course, get you public agenda between now and the start of the meeting. There's a consideration of minutes, and then we have 2 proclamations on the agenda. One is declaring Constitution Week, and we'll catch the typo in the rough draft and fix that. And then the second one is a proclamation declaring Hispanic Heritage Month. We have 3 new business items. The first is the selection of a voting delegate and alternates for KAC, the conference coming up. That background is on page 10 of your supplemental materials, but it's the bylaws of the Kansas Association of Counties provide that a county voting delegate and alternates be selected and certified to the secretary of the association at least 7 days prior to the opening of KAC. And many of you are going to KAC. That meeting is coming up, so it's time to do that as we do every year.
Do we know who's going?
I don't, Chairman, right now. As far as commissioners, I don't know who's going. And maybe that's something we can talk about next Wednesday. Well, let me get from Lisa and Carol who's scheduled to do that, and we'll have that available Wednesday. The second new business item is a resolution related to adoption of a policy and procedure, and we actually made it a finance policy. It is the policy that we have had some public discussion about already concerning community program funding requests and how we handle those procedurally, in budget or out of budget. We've had public discussion. That begins on page 12 of your supplemental materials, and the actual policy starts on page 15. So commissioners have been provided with the policy. They can review it, and we will have public discussion and hopefully an adoption next week. If we don't get an adoption, we can defer and I can make further amendments, whatever the will of the commission is. So that's the second new business item. And then third new business item is bid board. And from what I understand from Joe, and he is on the Zoom here, we have 4 items. I don't know if commissioners have any questions for Joe or want him to preface in any way the items, or just wait till next Wednesday. Seeing none, Joe, I guess you will dazzle us next Wednesday then. We have 9 consent items, commissioners. Most all are fairly mundane business, but I do have staff on the line here. If there's any technical questions about any consent item, we would be glad to answer that right now. So if any commissioner has any question on a consent item, please go ahead and speak.
Mr. Manager, I have one question.
Go ahead, sir.
There is a zone change from SF20 to SF5 in District 5. Does that require a public hearing?
Jim or Justin? Let me go with Justin. Wagner's on. Justin, can you answer Commissioner Howell's question?
Yes, Commissioner Howell, there was a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission on that item.
Okay, so it doesn't require a public hearing in front of the BOCC though?
There's no requirement for a public hearing on a zoning case to go in front of the Board of County Commissioners. Traditionally, and Scott Wade, I think, is on the call here as well, but I think traditionally, if there are no protests received, the items have been placed on consent agenda over the last handful of years. Certainly if the will of the commission was to open that up for discussion and see if there's any public comment, I think you could do that if you would like to as well, or we could, I think Tom could switch it on the agenda if there's a will to do that as well.
I'm not going to request that. I'm fine. I just want to make sure we didn't, and I have seen this on consent in the past, but it's just a question in terms of public access to items. Normally I want to make sure that we provide opportunity, but again, I think this is non-controversial apparently, so I'm fine with it where it's at.
Great. Okay, Commissioner. Scott, did you have anything you wanted to add, or since Commissioner's okay, are we good? Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great explanation.
Any other questions on consent, Commissioners? And legal staff, Mike or Justin, no executive session next week, correct? Or is there?
I'm unaware of any, Tom.
Very good. Okay, Commissioners, see how easy it is? That's agenda review. We're happy with the order. We've got the pretty simple agenda for next week. Any other questions, or we can conclude?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Manager, I have one other question. This is Jim
That's it.
Howell again. So it makes me, at the beginning of the meeting, there's some announcements about some events and things like that. Seems to be more information just for the public to consume. But there's also sometimes some technical information provided, and there's sometimes there's dialogue between the presenter and the commissioners, but because it's before we call a meeting to order, those things are not captured in the minutes. And what I'm wondering is, like, for example, the COVID-19 update, I would not be surprised if there's some discussion about that. But since, again, just for the permanent record, I don't know why we don't do some of those things after the meeting's called to order, so we can capture those in the minutes and have a permanent record of, I guess, of our status and any questions that might come up. And so I just question the fact that it seems to me there should be maybe potentially some thought given to whether or not those types of announcements or those types of discussions should be after the meeting's called to order rather than before.
I understand your question, Commissioner, and I think that's part of the reason why it's a good idea to have this agenda review with all commissioners involved. I think as Nicole goes over her topics, if we see something or a commissioner sees something that really should be agenda material, and that I agree with you, there is a fine line. There are many times on things that probably should be part of the meeting, even report outs from the election commissioner or other appointed officials. Many times enter into an area that probably ought to be part of the minutes. I think that this format would give commissioners a chance, if we catch those kinds of items as Nicole goes over them that you would prefer to see as an agenda item, we can make that switch here on Friday before the final agenda goes out to the public. So I hear what you're saying. I think we watch it.
I think that's where I would like to move to agenda item.
Okay. Is there anything today that you wanted on the agenda, sir? Nicole,
The
did we have, go back,
Last week should have been on the,
okay. Nicole, can you go back to your, there was a couple, 3 items. Can you repeat those again so we can dive in on this a bit?
Sure, I'm happy to. The first one I mentioned was a community job fair and resource fair that is held in conjunction with the Kansas Department for Children and Families. That's on September 21st from 10 to 2.
All right,
It is Emergency Preparedness Month, and so we were going to mention that. And then the last one was a COVID-19 update, if there is more information to share about boosters.
Commissioner Howell, is that the one you want put on open business, on new business?
yes, please.
Okay, very good. We can do that. No other commissioner has a problem with that. We'd be glad to put that, adjust that onto new business.
And I expect we just do a receive and file, but I just think it needs to be on the record. That's all.
Very good, sir. Okay. Anything else from commissioners first or staff? Thank you all. Chairman, any final shots from you before we go?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you.
All right, very good. Well, this will kind of be the plan moving forward. We'll try to get together Friday. It's very brief, but I think worthwhile. So thank you all for your time today, and everybody have a good Friday.